This conference will now be recorded.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Internet 1. In this class, we'll be talking about using the internet, what we need to get onto the internet, and then we're going to focus on a specific browser, the Microsoft Edge browser, which, if you're not familiar with Edge, it is the more upgraded version of what used to be called Internet Explorer. It's also the one that comes with Windows. So when you purchase a new Windows computer, all right, or if you have the old Internet Explorer still, you can upgrade to Edge for free. So again, it comes with Windows, so that's why we cover it in this class, because it is one of the most popular browsers out there, one that many people have access to, again, free of charge. All right, so what I'd like to do first is talk about the internet more generally, and then we're going to jump into the Edge browser. So what is the internet? Let's start with a very basic question. What is the internet? It's basically computers linked together to communicate with each other. All right, so when you are accessing a website, you're accessing essentially someone else's computer that is hosting that website, the person or company or organization that created that website. So you're accessing their server to get access to their website. Okay, so again, it's essentially just computers linked together to communicate with each other. Now, we tend to use the two terms internet and World Wide Web synonymously, but they're a little bit different. The internet is basically just the connection itself. The World Wide Web is the part of the internet that puts everything into a system that's relatively easy to navigate, and also everything into a language that's easy to understand. All right, so it's kind of like the user-friendly portion of the internet is the way I like to describe it. So typically when we're accessing the internet, we are accessing the World Wide Web to get to those various websites. And email is just another part of the internet, of course. It is the service we often use to send messages to each other. Now, again, when we're getting onto the internet, when we're accessing the World Wide Web, we are typically accessing websites, whatever they might be. Now, there's some good terms here to familiarize ourselves with. So let's start with a web page, which is a document on the web. So whenever you're reading something on the internet, whatever it might be, if you're going to our library website, for example, you might be reading about events coming up. You might be reading about some reading recommendations, policies, etc. So all those different things are available on different web pages. So it's just a document that's hosted over the web. Now, a website is a collection of those web pages. So again, to use our library website as an example, our library website is made up of several different web pages. Okay, so each of our different services that we offer, each different types of events, for example, each branch of our library system, all right, each of those individual things has its own web page. So one website is made up of multiple web pages, much like a book is made up of several individual pages. Now, there's also this term homepage, which typically refers to the very first page of any website. So when you put in that main website address, which we'll talk about in a minute, the first screen you come to, or the first page you come to, is its home page. All right. Now, a home page can also, in some cases, refer to the first page you come to when you open your internet browser. So you can set your own home page. So when you launch your browser, it goes directly to this page on this website. All right, and we'll kind of talk about that difference a little bit later. But generally speaking, the home page refers to the first page of any website. So how does the internet work? As I said, the World Wide Web is that user-friendly part of the internet that works through hyperlinks or links. So it allows us to go from one page to another, one website to another through the use of clickable links. All right, and as I said, links could take us to a few different places. It might take us to another place on the same page. You may have seen this before, where you click on a link and it automatically scrolls down to something else. But in most cases, that link will take you to another web page on the same site, or to another website entirely. And we'll see examples of those a little bit later. And then every website and web page has its very own address called a URL, which stands for Uniform Resource Locator. Okay, so or So it's called the URL, but the more general term is just the address, okay, the web address. So it's essentially just like a postal address or telephone number. Okay, it's a unique address that that web page uses for its location. We type it in exactly as we see it in most cases, and we're taken directly to that page. So this is a typical URL or website address, and it's made up of three main parts. The first is the www dot, which just means that we are accessing the World Wide Web. In the middle there, we have the name of the website, which is typically the most unique part. So this is our library website here, mcl.org. All right, so the MCL is our unique name for our website. And then we have the domain, which is .org. Okay, or .org, as it's often called, for organization. Now, domain names can be important, so we don't want to gloss over those because there are several. And here's a list of some more of the common ones. At the top of that list there is .com, the one we've probably seen most often, which stands for commercial. We have .edu for educational, .org for organization, .gov for government, .net or .net for network provider, and .mil for military. So depending on the site you are accessing, they'll be using one of these domains, and the domain typically kind of tips you off or clues you into who's hosting the website and the kinds of information you'll find on the website. So a couple of these are pretty obvious. So if I see .gov or .gov, for example, I know that this is a website hosted by a government agency. And if I go to that website, I'll find information regarding, government policies, potentially, laws, bylaws, etc. Same thing with .mil. This one's pretty obvious. If I go to this, it's going to be a website hosted by the military containing related information. .edu as well, okay, educational. These are typically used for academic institutions, colleges, universities, and other related institutions. Okay, now, in terms of the information you'll find generally, okay, when we want to find reliable, accurate, up-to-date, authoritative information, we generally speaking, you want to stay away from .coms, and I would say .nets as well. Okay, .coms, they are commercial, which means that they are typically ad supported. They have sponsors. So the information you find there may have some kind of bent or agenda that's catering to those sponsors. It's not to say that all .coms are bad or that the information you'll find there is incorrect. It just means that just to kind of play it safe, we want to stick to, in most cases, .edus, .govs, okay, for the most, again, for authoritative information, reliable information. .orgs are typically good, but even .orgs can sometimes, depending on the organization that's hosting that site, they might have some kind of, again, some kind of agenda. They may have some kind of political affiliation, so we want to kind of be careful. But .edus, .govs are generally impartial, and not only are they impartial, but the information they have is authoritative because it's written and hosted by experts in the fields. Okay. Again, that's when we're looking for reliable, up-to-date information, especially something like health information. All right, you want to stick to .edus, .govs, and in some cases, like I said, there are several good .orgs out there as well. So, last but not least, how do we get onto the internet? Obviously, we need some specific equipment or maybe subscriptions. So, of course, we need a computer, which could be a desktop, a laptop, a smartphone. Okay. We also need a modem. Well, in the case of computers, okay, we need a modem, a device that you connect to your computer and to a phone line or cable to allow your computer to connect to the internet. Of course, you need an internet browser installed on your computer. So, as I mentioned, when we access the internet, when we access the World Wide Web, we are doing so through a software program called an internet browser or web browser. Okay. And so we have three popular ones listed here: Edge, Google Chrome, and Mozilla Firefox. These are all three very popular internet browsers They're all free. You can have one, you can have all three. It's really up to you. You can have multiple browsers installed on your computer. That's fine. In fact, many people do. And also, if you're an Apple or Mac user, you may be familiar with Safari, which is the Apple browser. Again, even on an Apple computer, you can download Edge, Chrome, and Firefox in addition to Safari. Again, they're all free to download. And there are a few others out there, but these are essentially the big three, especially on a PC. And then you also need an internet service provider, okay, what's usually called an ISP. So you need some kind of company, some kind of subscription that's giving you access to that and to the internet, okay? So a couple popular ones in this area are, of course, Comcast, Comcast Xfinity, and Verizon Fios. There's also Optimum, which you might be familiar with. Okay, these are all different internet service providers. Now, the browser we're going to focus on in this Internet 1 class and also our Internet 2 class primarily is Microsoft Edge. All right, as I mentioned earlier, it is the browser created and owned by Microsoft, so it comes with your Windows computer. All right, comes with Windows 10 and actually Windows 11, which was recently released. Okay, it can also be used on Windows 7 and 8. It could be used on the Mac operating system. It could be used on the Linux operating system and on mobile devices. So as I mentioned, for this class, we're using the latest version of Edge. Okay, now Edge is the newer, improved version of Internet Explorer. Internet Explorer was essentially retired, and they moved over to Edge. Okay, which is just more functional, faster, etc. Now, Edge itself has gone through a little bit of a renovation. Okay, so in early 2020, they released the latest version of Edge, which is based on the Chromium code base. I won't go into too much detail about what that means. Just know that that's essentially the foundation upon which Edge is built. And if that term Chromium sounds familiar, it should, because it relates to Google Chrome. Essentially, Edge and Google Chrome are now using the same code base. So if you're a Chrome user, you're going to find that the latest version of Edge looks and works very similarly, and vice versa. All right, and it is faster than earlier versions of Edge. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and get started using Microsoft Edge. So I'm going to leave this slide. So for those of you here in the classroom, if you go down to your taskbar in your Windows 10 operating system, you will see an access point to Edge right here. And for those of you attending virtually, let me close that. Let me try this again. I forgot it reopened. There we go. All right, for those of you attending virtually, just if you have, again, if you have a PC, you will more than likely have Edge on your computer. All right, and just access it from whatever access point you're used to, whether it's your taskbar, your desktop, or your start menu. All right, so when I clicked on the Edge icon, it opened up the browser, and it went directly to our library website. Now, so a couple things here. As far as the library website, this is the home page for the website. There's that term again. All right. Now, also, when I launched Edge, it went directly here. So it's also acting as a home page in that regard for me. However, what we're seeing now with these browsers is that there's a difference between a home page and a start page. Okay, so I'm gonna talk about the difference a little bit later for Edge here, but for now, the definition for homepage that we're using is the first page of a website. So that's what we're looking at right now with Mercer County Library System. So at the top of the screen there, we're going to go over the toolbar in just a few minutes, but I'll just quickly draw your attention to the middle of that toolbar. Oops, let me try that again. Which is the URL or address bar. So this is where we type in the actual URL or address for the website. Okay, so you'll see there that we are on the mcl.org website. It might be a little hard to see, but it is there. Okay, now there's no www dot there in the beginning. That's because we often don't need that to actually put that in. The browser typically does that itself, essentially. So in this case, we didn't need to actually put that in there. That's okay. But the rest of it is the unique part. That's the part we do need to get access to the right website. So we do see mcl.org. And again, so right now we're on the main homepage of the website. The HTTPS is the hypertext protocol. Again, something you don't need to put in yourself. The browser does that for you. And when you see the S there, that means secure. HTTPS. Also notice the lock icon to the left of that, which is currently locked. It just means that this website's secure. Any information put in here is not stored anywhere, given to anybody, anything like that. Everything is perfectly safe and secure when you access this website. Now, we'll talk about the toolbar in a minute. All right, let's just go down to the website itself for one moment. So again, we're on the home page of our library website. Anytime you're on a website, there will almost always be a vertical scroll bar on the right to scroll up and down because there's almost always more information than what you initially see. Okay, you typically have to scroll down the page to see all the information that it contains, and you can always scroll back up to the beginning. Now remember, when we're using the World Wide Web, we navigate through the use of links. Okay, so here on our library website, right on the home page itself, we have many links. We're not going to go through all of them, don't worry. I'll just point out a few important ones. So sometimes links, in fact, let me use, let's start. Some links in the top right corner here where it says My Account, Our Catalog, Contact Us. All right, these are essentially just kind of ordinary plain links. It's just text, right? We see My Account, Our Catalog, Contact Us. So these are just kind of plain old hyperlinks using text as their link. Now, what's important though is that when you point at them, because you might not know that they're links until you point at them. So when you point at them with your mouse pointer, notice the words are underlined when I point at them. That's one indication of a link. Another indication of a link is that the mouse pointer, the arrow turns into a pointed finger. All right, that's typically your best indication. When you see that pointed finger, that means that what you're about to click on is in fact a link. Now, links can also come in other forms. So to the left side, we have our social media toolbar here. Okay, so each of those little icons is a link to its respective social media website. All right, so again, we see the pointed finger, and we also see that each of those icons is expanding to show the full name. All right, so again, just another indication that these are links. The fact that they're kind of dynamic, that just shows that they are in fact links or hyperlinks to other, in this case, other websites. Now, as I come down below, we see the text going across here, About Us, Branches, Catalog, etc. Notice the little arrows next to them. So these are drop-down menus. Drop-down menus which contain several links to other pages. All right. So sometimes menus can be dynamic like this. So you see, I'm not even clicking, I'm just pointing at them. The menu drops down, and then I see links to related pages. So each of these graphics is its own link. Notice the pointed finger. And as I scroll further down the page, you'll see plenty more. We see a Read More button here. That's a link to a specific web page. All right, we have Learn More, a couple of those buttons. We have a Listen Now button. Again, just notice the pointed finger. Also notice the text is highlighting. Like I said, usually the link itself will be dynamic. All right, it will activate in some way. It will change the way it looks. And there's plenty more as I scroll down. When we see blue font like this underlined, that's usually a link. Notice the pointed finger. Okay. Now, again, we're not going to go through the whole page. Don't worry. I think you understand the idea. All right. The big takeaway here is that links come in all shapes and sizes. They're not just plain text. They could be pictures. They can be drop-down menus. All right. They can be even sometimes videos. You might see a video playing. You click on it and it links you to some other website. All right. Now, another thing to remember that's very important, especially when you're using a PC like this, another great indication of a link, perhaps the best, besides the pointed finger, is the website or web address preview. So I'm going to use my pen here. Now it might be a little hard to see. Let me see if I can. I'll just stay here. Down by this chat button, just keep your eyes peeled there, inside where I'm drawing. All right. When I point at a link, notice the text that pops up. Okay, that's a preview. Here, I'll go over here to Facebook. Okay, that's a preview of the specific web address or URL to which that link leads. So once you click on it, that's where it's going to take you. Okay, so this is great to know because you might want to know ahead of time, is this link what I want? Is it legitimate? Is it or is it going to take me to is it going to take me to an advertisement, which often happens? We'll see plenty of examples of those. Okay, so always just look for that preview because it tells you, first of all, that it is a link, but also it tells you where it's going to take you. So you don't end up in the wrong place and waste your time or go somewhere, to some website that has bogus information, something like that. And like I said, we always want to keep our eye on those ads, okay, those sponsored ads or clickbait, because the preview will typically tell us if it is. And again, we don't want to waste our time with that kind of stuff. Okay, so as I mentioned, links, sometimes they take us to the same place they take us to a different place on the same page. So sometimes they'll just kind of scroll down. In fact, do I see any here? I'm trying to see. Well, let me get rid of that drawing before I forget. Yeah, I don't think so. But again, sometimes when you click on a link, essentially it will scroll down by itself to where that piece of information is on the same page. Okay, but in most cases, links will take you to a different page on the same website or a different website entirely. So let's just look at a quick example of a link that takes us to a different page on the same website. So for example, if I go down here to the branches dropdown, okay, we have different web pages, each one dedicated to a specific branch in our library system. So I'll click on the Lawrence headquarters branch. Notice the preview at the bottom. Show me where it's going to take me. I'll click on it. So now I'm on a different page, but on the same website. Now, how do I know I'm on a different page? Well, a couple things. Let's start with the most important, which is the URL itself. Okay. Again, it's a bit hard to see, but it does say up there mcl.org, and then we have a / branches / Lawrence. So any page on a website that's sort of branched off of the main homepage, like we're doing right now, these are accessed via extensions. So everything that's after .org and that / that's an extension. Just like when we use a phone line, right? We could either call the main number or dial an extension to get directly to that person. So same thing's happening here. If I was to go up to that URL bar and type that in exactly as it's shown, /branches / Lawrence, it would take me directly to this page and it would just bypass the home page entirely. So it is possible to go directly to a specific web page without having to go to the main website or main homepage first, if you know the extension. All right, they're not always quite as clean and tidy as this. branches/Lawrence. Sometimes they're much longer. They might have weird symbols. So they're not always easy to remember or jot down, but we'll talk about how we can save them in a little bit, because it is possible to save specific pages so you can get to them later. All right, but that's called an extension, and by typing it in exactly as it's shown, it will take me directly here. Just keep in mind with extensions, they're typically case sensitive, meaning that if that L in Lawrence was capital L, I would most likely have to type it in as a capital L, or else it wouldn't work. Okay, so the main web address, mcl.org, that's not case sensitive. I could type that in all caps, whatever, it would still take me to this website. Extensions, on the other hand, are typically, they're case sensitive, and if you see any symbols, hyphens, we often see, maybe like weird, like a percentage sign, a dollar sign, you will have to type those in exactly as they're shown to get to the specific page, or else it won't, you'll receive an error. All right, so again, this is just an example of a link that takes us to another page on the same website. And I know it's on the same website because it has the same website name, mcl.org. Then we just have an extension. All right. And again, I would have known that ahead of time anyway because of the preview down below where it says mcl.org/branches/Lawrence. Our website, you won't always see this, but our website also has what's often called breadcrumbs here, where it's actually showing you the path, or the path, starting with the home page, going over to the branches drop down, and then making its way over to the specific Lawrence headquarters branch page. So it's just showing you step by step, basically where we started and where we are now. Again, you won't always see that on websites, but on our website we do have those breadcrumbs. And you can actually use those breadcrumbs to get back to a specific place. If I want to go back to the home page, I can click on home, and here I am. All right, so now we're back on the main home page. Now, sometimes, like I said, links will take you to another website. Sometimes it's kind of obvious. Sometimes it's not so obvious. So let's look at a not so obvious one. If I go to the events dropdown, okay, and go over to our events calendar. Now, here in our events calendar is where you get access to all the events happening for our library system. All right, so I'm going to click on that. Let's pretend I want to register for something. I click on it and give it a second, and it takes me to our events calendar. However, look up there in the address bar, the URL bar, it does not say mcl.org. It says eventkeeper.com, and then has a very long extension after it. Okay, so so our events are hosted on a different website called eventkeeper.com, but it's linked through our website, through the library website. Okay. So like I said, it won't always be so obvious, but if you're ever curious, remember the preview down in the bottom left corner. That will tell you where it's going to take you. Okay, now when we are using the internet, of course, this, I also like to show you this example because this is kind of a typical, often when we're using the internet, we're filling out forms, applications, etc. So this is a typical form that you would fill out. We have a lot of this, the kind of same things you'll see and use on other websites. Maybe if you're filling out a job application, if you're searching for other events, other places, or even if you're, I mean, it really could be anything. Anything you're filling out a form for on the internet, right? So we see some pretty typical stuff here. We do have, oh, let me get the, in fact, let me change my color so we can see it better. That should be good. All right, so of course the list of events is down here as you scroll down, but we do have some filters. All right, so on websites, they often give you filters to kind of narrow down the information it's giving you. So if I'm looking for something specifically at the Lawrence branch, I could use the all branches filter and instead go to and select specifically the Lawrence branch. So now it narrows it down. If I'm looking for not all events, but computer classes, I can go to all events, narrow it down to computer classes. So now it's only going to show me computer classes at the Lawrence branch. Okay, and I can go by month and by year in some cases, although we typically don't go back that far, but those are possibilities as well. Okay, and now as I scroll down, I see all the computer classes at the Lawrence branch. So again, you'll often, on websites, you will see filters, because websites give you a lot of information, of course. Sometimes we need to filter it or narrow things down to get to the things we need to kind of sift through, get rid of the other stuff out of our view. So that's filters often look just like this with drop downs. Sometimes they might be here. Sometimes you'll see filters on the left navigation pane on the left side. We often see that as well. Okay, things like eBay, Amazon, they often have filters on the left side. Now, if I want to register for something, I'll use a quick example here. We do see a register button. And here's a registration form. Okay, now when you're filling out forms like this on the internet, remember, sometimes you have to make a selection. You might have what are called radio buttons, which are little bubbles. You have to click on one to make your selection. And other times you have to just type things in freely, right? Kind of open-ended, like we see here. Now, whenever you're filling out a form on the internet, whenever you see asterisks, okay, asterisks mean that field is required. Okay, so whenever you're filling out a form, that form is made up of a number of fields. Some of those fields are required, some are optional. So in this case here, it looks like the email field is optional, but the others, first name, last name, and phone number, are all required. I would simply fill in my information, click send, and I'm all set. So again, I'm just showing you this because this is the standard process for filling out all types of forms across the internet. Again, job applications, registrations, perhaps even registering for an account with that website. All right, a lot of the same things you'll see. You fill out the fields, note which ones are required, which ones are optional, and then at the end, you'll see a send button or maybe a save button or submit, and then you're all set. Now, I actually don't need this. I'm going to click cancel here. I'm going to go back up now. We're on the Event Keeper website. However, notice we have the Mercer County Library System logo here. So oftentimes, the website logo, because most websites will have its own logo, or the company has its logo, that logo acts as a direct link back to its homepage. And in fact, it even says right there, homepage, okay, underneath here. So if I click on that logo, if I want to go back to our library website, I can just click on this and it will take me back. Now there's also a back button. We're going to come to that in a few minutes. But this is a direct link back to the homepage. However, what you may or may not have noticed is that it brought us back to the homepage, but if you look up at the top there, we have two separate tabs now. Okay. Let me do that in the red. Now I can go back to red. See that better. Okay, two tabs. So whenever you're using an internet browser, whether it's Edge, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, you are able to open up multiple web pages and websites in one session, okay, or what's often called a browsing or browser session. So in other words, a session is when you launch your browser and you're using it without opening another one or closing it. So that's one browsing session, okay? But we can open up several different websites or web pages without having to. So if I want to have two websites open, I don't have to have two browsers open. I don't have to have two separate windows open. I could just use the same window, the same browser session, and just divide them by these tabs. So notice how I'm clicking back and forth between the events calendar, which is still open, and our library website. Now, within each tab, you'll see an X that allows you to close the tab. It won't necessarily close the entire browser. It will just close that specific tab or that specific web page that's open. Now, to the right of those two tabs, we have a plus sign. The plus sign allows us to add more tabs. So you can add a new tab by yourself without having to go to a website first. All right, and I'll just click on this real quick. I'll just show you what it looks like if I click to open a new tab. So this is what I get in Edge, okay? Now, this is what's typically called a new tab page. It's basically just an aggregate of several different news stories, headlines, okay, weather updates, maybe sports updates, scores, things like that. Just a bunch of newsworthy items all pulled together in one place. That's also what we get with a new tab page, whether you're using Edge, Chrome, or whatever other browser. Now, you can change what opens in your new tab. You can have it set to a specific web page if you want. Again, we'll come to that in a little bit. Now, to close this new tab page, because I don't need it, I'll just click on the X in that tab and get rid of it. All right, and keep in mind you can right-click on a tab for a contextual menu for several options. We'll explore some of these things in more detail on the internet too, in terms of managing your tabs, opening new ones, closed ones, etc. All right, so going back to the tabs for just 1 second, I don't need that event calendar, so I'm just gonna I'm gonna click on the X in that tab to get rid of it, and now I'm back to just one tab, which is the Mercer County Library System homepage here. All right, so now that we've covered the kind of the basics or the mechanics of a website like this, navigating through the links, we talked about the URL previews, we talked about going to other websites, potentially going back, etc. Let's talk about the toolbar. So now we're getting a little more specific to Edge. Everything we've discussed so far is pretty much universal amongst all browsers. You'll find the same features. But now let's talk about the toolbar here in Edge, which allows us to better sort of manage our navigation from one page to another, one website to another, also to manage our overall session. Okay, save web pages so we can get to them later, and other settings. But again, I do want to stress that the tools we're going to cover here up in this toolbar, you're going to find pretty much the same exact tools in other browsers. They might have slightly different names, the icons might look a little bit different, but generally all browsers support the same exact tool. So if you could master one, you've pretty much mastered them all, okay? Now let me I'm going to go to another page real quick so I can activate the back button. Let's just go to Lawrence again, that's fine. Okay, and I'm going to go to one more from here. Looking for a link. Homebound delivery, okay. So we're still on the same site. Oh, I found an error page. I have to let someone know. How about this one? Predict the Oscars. Okay, here we go. So I started out on the home page. I went to the Lawrence branch page, and then it linked me to this page. So I kind of, went through 3 different pages, starting with the home page. So remember, when we think about a browsing session, going from one page to another, just think of it as reading a book. All right, as you go from page to page to page, typically left to right, but sometimes you might go back right to left. You might want to reread a page, go back, whatever might, for whatever reason. So our internet browser allows us to do the same thing. So if we look up there in the toolbar, the very first icon we see to the left is the left arrow. That's our back button. So by clicking the back arrow once, it will take me back one step or one page to the one before this, which was the Lawrence headquarters branch. All right. Now, by doing that, I also activated the forward button, the right arrow. This will take me the other way to the Oscars page again. All right, because once we open up one page, we basically added it to the number of pages we've visited, so we can go back and forth as needed, left, right. And when we reach the very last page we looked at, notice the forward button is now disabled because I can't go forward anymore. I haven't visited any other pages past this point yet. Okay, but I can still use the back button because I can go back to the Lawrence page, or with another click, go back one more step to the home page. Now the back button's disabled because I can't go any further because this is where I first started, but the forward button is activated again. All right, so back and forth, just like pages in a book. Now next to the back and forward buttons is your refresh, or what's sometimes called reload, depending on the browser. Okay, this will just, it won't really have any effect here, but it will just update the page I'm looking at. Okay, so some common uses for your refresh button: a news website, where so when you visit a news website, presumably news stories are getting added constantly. So if you access the website and then you're looking at it, and then 10 minutes later, if you hit the refresh button, it's going to update the page to show you any news stories that have been added since you first visited the page. Okay, so 10 minutes, half hour, hour, whatever, hit refresh and you'll likely see new things added to that page. Sometimes things refresh automatically, but sometimes you have to manually do it yourself to see the latest information. Okay. Another example is actually like those registrations we looked at before for our events. All right, so if you register for something, in fact, let me just bring you there real quick to show you what I mean. All right, so a registration, sometimes it might tell you how many spaces are available. Like this says 4. Let's say I register, okay? Now, when I come back, it might still say 4 until I refresh, and then it will say 3. So sometimes with registrations, with forms, where we have to manually send information to the website, we have to refresh the website to show us, the updated information, essentially what we just did. All right, so that's another common reason for having to refresh when we send forms and we just want to make sure that everything went through. Let me go back to the home page again. Notice I'm using the back button this time. Okay, now let's go to the URL bar, the address bar itself. Okay, now in that address bar, you will see a few icons. You'll see send this page, which is really something you can only use when you sync your devices. If you're not familiar with syncing, which is something that's very popular now, you can connect all your devices that you might have to essentially one account, and you can view the same information across all devices. We'll kind of talk about that a little more with a couple other tools here. If, for example, if you have a desktop at home, you also have a smartphone or a tablet, you can log all of them into your Microsoft account and then get the same information across all those devices. So the send this page, if you have all your devices synced, you can basically just make sure you can send it, for example, to your tablet. You get a notification on your tablet saying, hey, check out this website. You click on it, it'll take you directly to that website. So it's kind of just a way of sending pages to your other devices so you can see them across multiple devices. All right. Right. As long as they're both logged into the same account, and they're synced, you typically, even if you're logged into the same account, you have to manually sync the devices, and then you could kind of send things back and forth between them. Yeah, so typically step one is make sure all the devices are signed into the account. Then you would go up here, click on turn on sync, and then it will find those other devices, and boom, now they're all connected. Okay. Same thing with like Google Chrome allows this as well. We see this a lot. If you have different Google accounts, you can sync them all together. Okay. The next one over here is create QR code for this page. To be honest, I can't really ever find a super useful reason for this. Maybe someone can enlighten me at some point, but basically what Edge allows you to do now is convert the web address to QR code. So you can send it to you can download it to your computer as a QR code and use that to log back into it, which is typically something that's easier to do with like a smartphone where it's hard to type. QR codes, you can just kind of scan it and it takes you right there. Okay, so you can download it as a QR code, you could send it to somebody so that they can access it on a device through the use of the QR code. But again, usually something we use with smartphones, not really computers, or maybe perhaps not even tablets so much. All right, now we often get, let me see if I can find the other, there's an icon that pops up sometimes. Yes, there it is. Okay, Immersive Reader. So depending on the page you're looking at, the Enter Immersive Reader tool will kind of put it into a more, it will optimize the page in case, it kind of makes it easier for reading, especially if you have any kind of, if you need any accessibility accommodations. Okay, Immersive Reader will kind of help you read a page. So it kind of converts it to it almost looks like a big article, right? Like a literal page in a book. That's what they do. Notice how they're just putting everything into one vertical list. Okay, and Immersive Reader also includes a read aloud tool that will read it to you, grammar tools, and other preferences that you can access. Okay, now I'm going to click the back button to go back because this is actually in a separate page. And there we go. So that's Immersive Reader, and like I said, you won't always see it. It depends on the page you're viewing. Now, last but not least, we see the star with the plus sign that says add this page to favorites. So all internet browsers allow you to save specific website addresses. In the case of Edge, it calls them favorites. Sometimes it calls them bookmarks, depending on the browser. Chrome and Firefox call them bookmarks. Edge calls them favorites, but it's the same exact thing and pretty much the same process no matter what browser you're using. So, in fact, let me find a good example here. Let me go back. Okay, so here's a decent example. So here's the Oscars page again. Now the extension is predict-the-Oscars, which means I would have to type that in exactly as it appears to get directly to this page. Or if I want to write it down or try to just remember it, okay, it might be a little difficult. Like I said, there are other extensions out there that are much longer than this and that are nearly impossible to remember, or they're difficult to write down, let alone commit to memory. So using the favorites tool, you could just save this specific page, this specific extension to your favorites list and get access to it whenever you need. So it's basically like a speed dial, right? Just saving a phone number to a speed dial, or to kind of update the analogy here, saving a contact to your smartphone. You don't have to remember that person's phone number. You just click on their name and it dials it for you. Same exact idea. So if I want to add this page to my favorites, I simply click on that star with the plus sign where it says add this page to favorites. Now it's going to say favorite added. All right, it's going to give that favorite a name, which you can change if you want to. If you want to make it shorter or something else completely, you can. You just simply type into the box, and it's going to put it in a specific folder. So a favorites, in the case of Edge, it calls it the favorites bar. Again, with Chrome, for example, calls them the bookmarks bar. All right, but same thing. So it's kind of like folders in your Windows computer where you can create your own folders and move files around, save specific files to those folders. All right, the favorites is the same thing. You can create your own folders and be specific as you want to. All right, now from here, so if you have another folder already created, you could select it from this list, or you can go to choose another folder, which will open up your favorites menu. We'll talk about that in a second. Let me just close that. I don't want to confuse you too much. Let's go back to this. So again, if you have a folder created, you can select it from the dropdown and then select done, and it will put it into that folder. Okay. Yeah, more, let me just see. I think more does the same thing essentially as if you go to choose another folder. Yeah, it just opens up your favorites menu. Okay, but for the purposes of adding a favorite, like this is, it's very simple. You simply give it a name, either stick to the name it gives you or change it, and then select the folder and then click done. Now, to manage all of your different favorites and the folders in which they're contained, I'm going to click the X here. We can go to the very next icon to the right, which is the star with the 3 lines. That's your actual favorites menu. Okay, so I open it up and now it's showing me essentially 2 folders, the favorites bar and the other favorites. Now the favorites bar think of it as like the main folder, okay? If you don't select a more specific subfolder, everything's just gonna go to the favorites bar automatically. One second, I'm just getting a sip of water, sorry. All right, I'm back. Sorry about that, folks. So let me go back to that favorites menu. All right, so there's our favorites bar, and you'll see that you can click on the, if there are folders, or well, in this case, if there are favorites saved to your favorites bar, an arrow will appear, allowing you to expand it to see what's inside. You'll see this with other folders. So if I had other things saved inside other folders, you'll see the arrow to expand and collapse it so you can see what's inside. All right, so I know I saved it to the favorites bar, so I could expand the favorites bar here, and there's the link right there. There's the favorite. So in other words, if I need to get back to this favorite in the future, I would come to this favorites menu, click on the link, and it will take me directly to that page. Now, also from your favorites menu, you can add the page to the favorites. So this is just another way to add a page to your favorites. Instead of using the icon that's located directly in your address bar, you can use the one here. All right, same exact thing. But next to that is the add folder. So now when you add folders, you're going to be adding them to your favorites bar. It just kind of, that's because again, the favorites bar is kind of the main section for everything. So when I click add folder, it's going to put it in that favorites bar as a subfolder. So perhaps I can call this library, or let's call it, how about MCLS pages. All right, so I created that folder. Now, if I want to put this website into that folder, I can just do a click and drag and drop it into that folder. Now you'll see that if I'm in the sort of the default view, I can expand the favorites bar, and then I can expand the MCLS pages folder, and then there's the website in there. And I think, let me just see real quick. Okay, and you can put folders inside of other folders as well. So you can get as specific as you need. So now I'm inside the MCLS pages subfolder. I could put another folder inside of this one, call it Oscars, press enter to save the name, and now I can click and drag, I can drag and drop again that website into that folder. So in case you want to create a folder chain to be as specific as possible. So now I can expand the favorites bar, expand MCLS pages, then expand the Oscars folder, and there's the link. Again, depending on how specific you want to be. Some people like a big folder chain, some people like to kind of limit the number of folders. It's really up to you, but it is possible. Whenever you're creating a folder, just make sure that you're starting with the folder you want to put that new folder inside of. Click on it. I'm sorry. And this is what always confuses me about Edge, and it gets me every time. If you want to put a folder inside of another folder, okay, by using the add folder icon up here, it's going to put it in the main favorites bar. So a sort of workaround is to right click on that folder and use the add folder selection here. And then it will put a subfolder inside of that one. Does that make sense? So again, using the add folder icon at the top here, it's going to put it as a new folder in your favorites bar automatically. But if you want to put a subfolder inside of an existing folder, like I just did with Oscars, select that folder or right click on that folder and then select add folder from this contextual menu instead. And then it will allow you to create that folder chain. And if at any time you need to delete a folder, okay, you can use, just see here. Yeah, the fastest way is just to right click and select delete. You can also rename them from the contextual menu. Okay, so again, to delete or rename a folder, just right click it and use your contextual menu. Same thing with the actual favorite itself, the actual link. Right click it, you could rename it, you could edit the web address. Maybe if at some point they change the web address for some reason, you could actually change it yourself, okay, manually, or you can also delete it. Or you can also copy it too. If you want to put this in more than one folder, you can copy it, right click into that folder. Oops, we'll have to go, let's see. I didn't actually copy it, did I? Duh. A right click to get that contextual menu, or the contextual menu, right click menu, whatever you want to call it. So let me see here, copy. Add this page. I'm actually trying to figure out how to use the copy link. Unless it's just a way to copy the address, but not actually save it as a favorite. I suppose that's the idea. Yeah, so I can copy the link for that favorite, but really I would only do that to paste it into the actual address bar of my browser or something. All right, any questions on using that favorites menu? Sorry if I kind of went back and forth because some of the updates to Edge, they still to this day, they confuse me a little bit. But you understand, all that makes sense as far as creating folder chains, renaming, deleting. All right. Also, so the three dots in your favorites menu opens up. Whenever you see three dots like this, that's kind of a universal icon for more options. All right. So from here, you can show your favorites bar. Okay. So if I click always, it will add it to your toolbar up here. So notice where I am up at the top there. There's the folder for MCLS pages. So I could just access it right from here instead of having to go through the menu itself. All right, and then when I click on that one, it will bring me the two subfolders. I point at them, and then there's the website right there. And if I want to get rid of the bar itself, again, I just go back, three dots, and I'll just choose it. I can make it only on new tabs or never, really up to you. It just means if it's on only on new tabs, every other tab besides the one you started with will have the bar there. Or you can have it never, so it never shows. It's really up to you. All right, and also, just to point this out, you can also import and export favorites. So if you, let's say you get a new computer, you have a whole big list of favorites saved. You don't want to lose them. You can go to export favorites, save it in a folder on your computer, give it a name, click save, okay? And then you can essentially move that, maybe put it on a flash drive, plug that flash drive into your new computer, and then use the import tool to then import them to the new computer. So again, you can export them to a flash drive and then import them from the flash drive to a new computer. So you have your same favorites all saved, so you don't have to create a new list again. Any questions on that, importing, exporting favorites? Okay. Now let's move over to the next icon, collections, which is kind of like favorites. All right, but it's a bit more versatile, I guess we'll say. So let me click on it real quick here. So collections. You can collect web pages. You can organize them as well as you browse. So not only can you save web addresses to your collections, but you could save also pictures and actually selected portions of text. So let's just say I want information. I'm trying to think of a good example here. Actually, let's use our technology instruction page, which is the program we're doing right now through this computer class. So if I go to the services drop down here and go down to technology instruction, now if I want to save some of this information, especially maybe information about the in-person classes at the Lawrence branch here, not only can I save this web page, but I can save maybe that specific piece of information the thing that I'm really concerned with. So I can go to collections. I can click on start new collection here. All right, depending on if you're using this the first time, just click on the blue button at the bottom to go to the next page. Just keep clicking through the prompts until you're taken to where it says start new collection. Probably click no thanks for that. Okay. So you can click on start new collection either at the bottom or at the top. Either one is fine. I'm going to call this, you can call it maybe Lauren's computer classes, technology classes, whatever you want to call them. So I'm going to call this collection. All right, and then you can just press enter to save that name. And then once you're in that collection, which you'll be inside of it, you'll see that it says add current page up at the top and also add content. So by clicking add current page, you will just add the web address or the web page, kind of like adding it as a favorite, same idea. And you have a link directly back to the specific web page here. But we can take this a couple steps further. For example, I could select this text. Now, what's tricky, and then put this into the collection, just this portion of text. What's tricky is that these are what are called flyout menus, which means that once I click outside of them, they go away. So I can't do a drag and drop unless I pin the flyout menu to my screen. Notice the pin icon at the top here. All right, in fact, let me open that collection first. I can click on the pin icon and it sticks it on the right side of my screen. So it's kind of acting as two separate parts of the screen. We have the website here with a scroll bar and then a right navigation pane, which is holding the collection. All right, and if you're not familiar with pinning, pinning is something kind of unique to Microsoft. All right, there are several places in a PC you can pin things, which basically just means you put it somewhere else so it's there so you can get to it faster. Okay, so that's what we've done here. We've pinned the collections menu to the screen. Now I can click on the collections icon again in my toolbar to get rid of it. And if I click on it again, it's still going to be pinned. So I could so essentially what I'm saying is you could still remove it to get it out of your view, but if you reopen it, it will stay pinned. If you want to unpin it, you click on the pin icon again, and it goes back to the regular flyout menu. Now with it pinned like this, I can now select this text, and I can drag and drop it into the collection. Let's see. And this is going to be one of those times where there's a glitch, isn't it? Okay. I'll try this one more time. So sometimes, and I've compared notes with others on the internet, and other people are saying the same thing. Aha, very good, thank you. All right, so there we go. So a student just taught the teacher, excellent. Oh, good. No, that's great. So so someone here in our computer classroom just advised me that if you're going to use a drag and drop method, point at the kind of the heading for that collection. Notice the blue line, and then you can drop it. So let's see the same. Let's see if this works with the picture as well. So I can also click and drag on this picture. Will the picture work? Sometimes pictures don't. All right, so we got it to work on one computer here. But on mine, it doesn't seem to be working. Let's see. Do I have to go down? No. Oh, how did I just see? Okay. I'm trying to figure out what it is I'm doing wrong with the drag and drop. Okay, so it looks like the trick with the drag and drop that I'm just now realizing is to point at the item above it when you drop it, and then it will put it in its proper location. So again, if you're going to use the drag and drop method with collections, point at the item above it before you drop it, and then it will place it in the correct location. Otherwise, it will just bounce back. So as you can see with collections, I can add links to websites, selected portions of text, and images. So it's all part of one general collection, which I call the Lawrence computer classes. Okay. You can also, if the drag and drop method, if you're having trouble with it, or if you don't want to pin the menu to the right side of your screen, you want to leave it as a traditional flyout menu, you can also use your right-click contextual menu, and from here, go to Add to Collections and select the collections from this list. Same thing with pictures. Add the collections, and there's the collection there. So either method works. Now I'm going to unpin this. So I'm going to click on the pin icon to put it back to a regular flyout menu. So now when I click outside of it, it just goes away by itself. And by the way, you can also pin your favorites menu. There's the pin. And I can pin the favorites menu to the right side as well if I need to. And I'll just unpin it again to put it back. Now, next to the collections, we have our profile icon. So again, here's that thing, that sync term again. So now Edge, of course, is a Microsoft product. So if we are logged into our Microsoft account, which is free, we can sync information across devices. So let's say we have a computer, we have a desktop and a laptop at home. We also have a tablet. Okay, if on all three of those devices, they're all signed in to the same Microsoft account, and then from here I go to turn on sync, okay, I can get access to those other devices and sync all the devices together. So, which means that using the tablet, I can get access to the same favorites list that I can right now on this computer. So all the information we're saving in our internet browser is going to be accessible across all synced devices. So again, you click on turn on sync, you would select the device from the device list, and then you're synced together. Again, but you just, you have to make sure that all devices are signed in to the same Microsoft account. You have to, yeah, from the other device, you have to sync that one, and then you have access to all the same information across. Yep. Now to the right, last but not least, we have the three dots here. Now I meant to mention, by the way, you may have more or fewer icons on this right side. It all depends on what's kind of been added, because you can take away icons or add more to that toolbar. And we'll talk about that in 1 second. So when we click on the three dots here, like I said, that symbol kind of one of the universal icons for more options. So that's what we're seeing here. Now this list of options is kind of separated into different categories. Again, you're going to find a lot of the same options in other browsers. So the first set of options: new tab, new window, new in private window, different ways to view web pages. You can open it up in a new, you can start a new tab, you can start a brand new window. So that would be using the same browser but two separate windows instead of two different tabs, for example. You can also do an in private window, which allows you to open up a web page in an in private session, which means that nothing will be traced, nothing will be recorded to your history. Okay. It's a bit safer if you're on a public computer, for example, and you're accessing private information. it's best to do that in a private window so that nothing is saved to the computer inadvertently. Okay, and also, like I said, your history will not be recorded either. So nobody can jump onto that computer after you and see the websites you were just looking at, because it just wipes everything out. There is a zoom feature here if you need to zoom in on any website to read it better, or zoom out in case it's too, the lettering's too big or whatever. You could do that as well. Now, the next set of options, these are the different menus essentially that we can add to the toolbar if we want. Right now we have favorites, collections. We have favorites and collections up there, but as you can see, we can also get to those menus from this list here. So if I don't want them up there, I can actually right click on favorites, for example, and select hide from toolbar, and now the icon is gone. So if you're more of a minimalist kind of person, you don't want all the icons up there, you can hide them and just access them from this drop down instead. I'll click on show again so it's back. So again, favorites, collections, same exact menus we just saw, just a different place to locate them. Now we have history and downloads. History just shows you your browsing history, all the websites you visited, the specific pages, going back pretty much going back as far as as long as you've been using the browser. All right. You can delete history. You can delete history by specific days, months, whatever it might be, all available there in the history menu. Okay, downloads, kind of similar. It's a download history. So anything you downloaded from this browser to your computer, maybe a document of some kind, a video, okay, it will show it in the downloads history. So you can see everything that's been downloaded through this specific browser. Okay, apps, these are kind of like apps that, not something that's used very often. All right, but basically, if you install a website app rather than using the website itself, it will be available in your apps menu here. Like a Google app, for example, instead of using the google.com website, you can manage those apps here in the Manage Apps option. And that's just something you would have to download separately, a Google app or something along those lines. And then we have extensions. You can always, there are something called browser extensions. It's kind of like extra tools that you can download often freely from the internet and integrate them into your browser. So for example, there's one that I use all the time called Library Extension. So if I'm looking at a book from a website, for example, that I maybe want to purchase, maybe I want to see if it's available at a library instead. The library extension actually will show me right there libraries in my area that carry that book and whether it's available. All right, but like I said, there are several other extensions out there. You can just kind of do a search for them to see what's available that you can add on to your Edge browser or some other browser, because other browsers support extensions as well, not just Edge. All right, then we have some, these are essentially options we could use starting with print. To another way I like to think of it as ways to kind of save the information we're looking at, so we can print a web page. Okay, we'll talk about that more on the internet too. Web capture, essentially a screenshot of a specific part of a page. Again, here's share, where you can share it with people, usually through your Microsoft contacts, or I shouldn't just say Microsoft contacts, your Outlook. You could use other apps as well, Facebook contacts, LinkedIn, etc. Kind of just integrates them and sends it to them. Find on page allows us to find information on the page, specific information. There's read aloud again, where we'll read this page out to us. And then we have some more tools that I encourage you to just kind of explore when you have some time. Except the one I always like to point out in more tools is the math solver, which is kind of cool. So Edge basically added a calculator to its browser. So if you're ever looking at something, you want to do some quick math, you could use the math solver tool here under more tools in your Edge options. Now, Down at the bottom, we have settings and help and feedback. Help and feedback, of course, has some good information you can consult if you're looking for some help and guidance on using something in Edge. If you're a little bit confused, you need some more information, there's help and feedback. But let's click on settings because I want to show you the Edge settings real quick. So this is kind of the back end of Edge. Notice it opens in a separate tab in your browser. It's kind of like its own web page. All right. So these are all the settings you can customize in Edge. All right, and you'll see the list, all the categories here on this left navigation pane. And whatever category you click on, you'll see the available options for that category here on the main screen. All right. Now the one I want to focus on here is Start Home and New Tabs. Let's click on that. So here is where we can set up our own start page and potentially a home page. So let's talk about this for a second. We see the first section we see is called When Edge Starts. Okay. So this is the page that will open up when we launch our browser. And like I told you earlier, we could set this to whatever we want. So we have a few options. The new tab page. So this will just, when you launch your browser, your Edge browser, it will immediately go to that new tab page we looked at earlier with all the news headlines, sports scores, weather information, etc. So you could choose to have it open as that if you want. You could select open tabs from the previous session. So if that's selected, when you launch your Edge browser, it's going to open up whatever you were last looking at. Okay, or what I've done is use the open these pages option, which allows me to set it to a specific page. Okay, which as you can see is there it is, mcl.org. Now let's pretend that wasn't there. I'm going to get rid of it to show you how you can add your own. So the first step would be to select the open these pages bubble. On the right side, click on add a new page. Simply type in the URL, www.mcl.org, click add. And there it is. Now, if you decide at some point you want to delete that as a start page, there's the three dots to the right, again, more actions or more options, and you'll see delete right there. You could also edit it if you want to change it to something else. Okay, Edge also allows you to add more than one start page. So I can actually still click on add a new page. Maybe Google, www.google.com, click add. Yeah, that's a good question. Do you have to use the www dot? I would, just to be safe. Typically, you don't need to, but every so often there are addresses that will require that to be put in manually. So just to be safe, I would add the www dot. Yes. Oops, let me go back to that real quick. Okay, so what this means is by adding another start page, if I launch Edge now, it's going to open up both tabs at the same time. So I did mcl.org and also google.com. So if you want to have more than one start page, okay, you could add more and it will just open each start page in its own tab. Now let me go back to settings again. Back to that same menu. All right, and like I said, you could always edit or delete that specific start page if needed. In fact, let me get rid of Google before I forget. There we go. Now, there's also something called a home page. So we talked about a home page in regards to the first page of a website. It can also refer to kind of a home base for you. So a home page, it's in the case of Edge here, it's different from a start page. The start page is the first page you come to when you launch your browser. But you can also add a home page, which is like a website that you might want to go to every single day and use that as kind of a home base. So let's say, for example, my start page, maybe I want to set it to CNN.com or New York Times or whatever, because the first thing I want to see when I first launch my browser is the news. However, the thing that I like to do every day, besides read the news, is use Google to do some searching. So I could save Google as a home page, so I can get to it whenever I need to. So you'll see under home button here, it's going to say show home button on the toolbar. So if you want to add a home page, first step, add your home button. So click this toggle to turn it on. Now, if you look up there in your toolbar, to the left of the address bar, you're going to see an icon that was not there before, which is the little home or house icon. All right, but before we exit our settings, let's set the home page. So again, we could set it to a new tab page. We don't want that. We want it to be a specific web page. So we're going to select the second bubble that says enter URL. Click into there. I'm going to type in www.google.com. Now, this one you do have to manually save. So to the right, make sure you click on the save icon. Now I'm going to leave the settings. So I'm going to go up to the tab in my browser that says settings, click on the X to close it. Now, if I click on the home button, it's going to take me right to Google. All right, so again, think of it as a home base. Your start page might be the first thing that you want to see every time you launch your browser, but when there's something that you know that you use every single day that you're going to maybe spend some more time on, that could be your home page or your home base. Now, since we're on the google.com page, let's stay here for a minute. And in fact, I want to open up another website. So to do that, I'll open it up as a separate tab. So I'll go up to my toolbar above the address bar, click on the plus sign to start a new tab. And in the address bar here, we're going to type in www.yahoo.com and then press enter to go to that website. Now, real quick, I'm going to go there in 1 second. I just want to remind you that when you're using a browser like Edge, the address bar typically has an autofill tool. So as you're typing, it's going to sort of guess as to what you're trying to visit and fill it in for you. Okay, and as you can see, in some cases, it's a very specific web page. This says yahoo.com/news/weather. So if that's where I wanted to go, I could just, instead of having to fill out the rest myself, I could just click on it. It will fill it in for me and then take me right to that page in one step. All right, so every browser has this. Again, it's just an autofill tool that will fill in what it thinks you're going to visit. So you could just, so it saves you the work of having to type in the whole thing yourself. Okay. Also, it will typically access your history as well. So if there's a website you visited recently and you start to type in that web address again, it will look in your history and say, hey, are you trying to go back here again? It will show it, click on it to go back to that same page. Okay, so it's typically pulling the autofill options from your history and from what other users are searching for or visiting. So that's typically what you're going to see here. But in my case, I'm just going to go to yahoo.com and here I am. So let's talk about these two websites. We have Yahoo, we have Google. All right, I'll leave it on Google for a second. So these are search engines. So up to this point, we've been talking about going to a website when we know the address, whether it's something we type in or we have it saved as a favorite. However, sometimes we don't know the address of a website, or we're just looking for general information and the exact website it comes from doesn't matter so much as the information itself. So in either of those scenarios, we use a search engine like Google or Yahoo, which will search websites across the internet for specific information. Okay, okay. So, and we do that by a keyword search. All right, these search engines, again, like Google and Yahoo, another popular one is Bing, which is the Microsoft search engine. Okay, in any of these cases, you will have a search bar, of course, which is where you go to type in your search terms and run your search. All right, so let me go back to Yahoo. Now, Yahoo is a search engine, but it's also kind of a news aggregate, which means that it's going to have on its homepage not just a search bar, which we see at the top here, but a whole bunch of newsworthy items are linked here. So it just collects articles, headlines from other sources and just puts them all into one place, or again, it aggregates them. So Yahoo will tell you where all those stories are coming from. It gives you a category, politics, US, etc., and then the specific publication, Yahoo TV, the Daily Beast, InStyle, etc. So this is what Yahoo does. In addition to being a search engine, it gives you access to your Yahoo account tools if you have a Yahoo account like Mail, and then beneath of that, it acts as an aggregate for news stories, okay, headlines, weather updates, sports scores and standings, things along those lines. Everything in one place. Let me just erase that drawing. Now, what's also important to take away from this for Yahoo is as we scroll down through all these different articles, okay, and by the way, you can filter the articles using these filters here. Notice how they're all checked. You can uncheck them. So you're only looking at sports, for example, okay? But as we scroll down, you will see that some of them, oops, I'm going to the wrong thing. There we go. Say ad, okay? So this is a good lesson because oftentimes when we are on the internet, whether we're using a search engine or even on a website itself, we will see links. They look like just regular old innocent links, but they're actually ads. Okay, they're sponsored links that lead you to sponsored ads. All right, oftentimes they look like a link, they sound like a link, but there's actually an advertisement. Okay, so just be careful of these. Again, it's not necessarily going to do anything bad to your computer, but you're just going to be wasting time because typically we're not looking for ads, we're not looking for products, we don't want to buy something. So we just want to avoid these just to kind of save ourselves the hassle of having to, you know, read through and just to realize it's an ad and then leave the page. So here in Yahoo, the sponsored ads are pretty easily identifiable. It will say ad, but if you're ever curious or you're ever concerned, remember, point at the link, look at your preview. Okay, this one isn't, oh, actually, no, it does say it, okay? So a couple indications that the link leads to an advertisement of some kind, or it is an advertisement of some kind. If you look at the preview, notice how long it is. There's a lot of just random characters there. All right, that's one good indication. It's pretty much indecipherable, okay, unintelligible. That's a good sign that this is an ad sponsored link. Also, though, if you look after the .com at the beginning of that preview, yahoo.com/, we do see CLK, which is standing for click. So it's measuring, it's like essentially clickbait. So the website is tabulating or calculating the number of clicks that this link gets for that sponsor. So that's also an indication that this is an ad. When you see CLK, it stands for click, which means the website's measuring the clicks Why? Because it's for a sponsor. So they can collect revenue based on the number of clicks, on the number of views. All right, so again, just to recap, Yahoo, it is a search engine. It does have a search bar right at the top, but its homepage has a lot of other information in addition to that. So it's kind of a one-stop shop for searching, the news, other highlights from sports and weather, and also if you have Yahoo Mail, you can get that from here as well. Now let's go over to Google, and you'll see Google takes a very different approach. All right, basically Google is just a search engine. All right, we have a search bar here. We have access to Google or Google and or Gmail account at the top right, much like we did with Yahoo. But besides those things, it's really not much going on here. Okay, so depending on your preferences, you might prefer you might want to use one of these search engines over the other. Some people like Yahoo because they like to get all the information, all the news right away, and then start searching. And then some people just prefer a kind of minimalist search engine approach like we have here with Google. But either way, the search essentially works the same. So I'll start with Yahoo. I'll go to the search bar. Let's say I'm looking for hotels in Philadelphia. Okay, you simply you click into the search bar and type in your keywords. And with search engines, you typically don't have to add articles like, or I shouldn't say articles, words like conjunctions like in, at, things like that. Just type in your main keywords. I typed in hotels Philadelphia. I'll press enter to run the search, or click on the magnifying glass, and we come to our search results page. And this is how most search engines work. No matter what search engine you're using, Google, Yahoo, Bing, all right, it's going to have the same process. Type in your keywords, and then it will take you to the search results page. And the results often look the same no matter what search engine you're using. So if you could use one, you can pretty much use them all. Now remember, with search terms, sometimes you need to specify your search query depending on the results you need, because here in Yahoo, I ran a search hotels Philadelphia, and it returned 3.2 plus million search results. All right, which is obviously way too many to sift through. And in addition to that, because these terms are kind of general, hotels Philadelphia, I might get a lot of irrelevant results. All right, I might not be looking to necessarily book a hotel. Maybe I'm looking for reviews. Okay, or I'm not looking for all hotels. I'm really looking for an affordable one. So I could say budget hotels. I can add that to my search query. So with search engines, you could always go back and adjust your search terms like I just did. Run a new search. And now I'm getting 312,000. So I'm limiting the results quite a bit. It's still a lot, but I am limiting them. Because the idea is that not only are we limiting the results, but we're limiting them to the most relevant results. And search engines will sort your results by relevance. So the most relevant results will be at the top of the list as you scroll. And if I need to go to more results, I can go to page 2, page 3, as you see down here. Again, other search engines do it the same way. They sort it by relevance, and if you need to keep going past the first page of results, either go to the specific page or click next. And notice with the results, I'm getting cheap hotels, best cheap hotels, etc. Now, here's another place to watch out for ads. All right. Another thing that search engines often do is they'll place sponsored links at the top. So they do sort them by relevance, but usually the very top of that list are going to be they're likely still relevant, but they're going to be sponsored ads. So again, not a huge deal. If you click on it, but just something to be aware of in case you're trying to avoid ads, or if the ad is a bit irrelevant, you just want to avoid it entirely and get to your pure search results. So to identify ads here in Yahoo, they've actually made it easier. It does say ad right next to the link. All right, and by the way, looking at the results, I should have mentioned this earlier, forgive me. The way a result is typically organized, we have the address at the top. That's where it's going to take us. The blue is the link itself to that specific web page, and then it usually includes some kind of description of what you'll find on that page, or it's literally a snippet from the page itself. It's like a preview from what you're going to find on that page, shown here. Now, I'm going to go to Google and run the same search real quick. Hotels Philadelphia. And we see the search results page looks just like it did in Yahoo. Again, same exact design or same exact layout. Website at the top, where it's taking us, the link in blue, and then a description underneath. And Google, just like Yahoo, does have sponsored links, and they are placed at the top. And here we go, add. So the idea is just to scroll down past the sponsored links until you do not see the ad icon, and these are just pure search results. Sometimes sponsored links, you'll find them again as you continue to scroll. They kind of scatter them in different places, so just look out for them. All right, and another thing that we're seeing with search engines more and more now is that aside from just results, they're giving you more information. So Google here is giving me a map as well of where these hotels are located, the nightly rate, the average rate, in fact. So you'll find other sort of relevant information right on the search results page itself. So everything's embedded into the page. So rather than having to link to a website, you might just find what you need right here. Okay, Yahoo does the same thing, Yahoo Maps. As we see here. All right, another example, if you're looking for a product, a specific product, sometimes Google or Yahoo will link you to, it will show you the links to the product itself. Rather than having to visit the website, you can just click on it. It will show you the price from this store, and you can just go directly to that product at that store. So again, search engines nowadays, they are embedding more information into their search results page other than just the actual search results. So to optimize discovery. Now, another thing these search engines do is they allow you to filter your results. So not only can you narrow down your results through by specifying your search terms. Here it is again, budget hotels, Philadelphia. Okay, but you can also use the filters. So here in Yahoo, actually, let's start with Yahoo again. Here in Yahoo, we see local. So this would find local results, images, videos. If I go to more, I can also narrow it down or filter it by news, shopping. All right, so if it's something that can also be bought as a product, I can narrow it down by shopping, and it will show me all the retailers selling that product, for example. Okay, so instead of showing me reviews for the product, it will just show me where I can buy it, for example, by going to the shopping filter. Now, a filter people often like to use is images. All right, so by sort of filtering the budget hotels Philadelphia search query to images, all of my results become images. So this is great if you're looking for what something looks like. Maybe you're going to a new place. If it's a little bit far away, you want to see what it looks like, so you know so when you're arriving, you know what to look for. You could always just do an image search, okay? So just type in your search terms and then limit your results to images. And if you click on an image, it will give you a little more information and also a link to the web page on which that image is found if you want to get more information. All right, image searching is also good for inspiration. Let's say you're trying to renovate your kitchen. All right, kitchen renovation ideas, you type that in as your search term and then limit your results to images, and then you can see what other people are doing. And then you can click on that image, go to the web page hosting that image to get more information about what that person did. So again, it's good for inspiration. It gives you a visual result. And then when you see something you're interested in, click on it and get more information. All right, Google does the same thing. Images. I can click on an image for a little more information and a link. Notice the visit link to get to that specific web page. I can even type in Mercer County Library System, NJ. Here we are again. All right, and one last thing I'll mention about using a search engine is that the address bar in your browser, often nowadays, it is an embedded search tool as well. So, for example, with Microsoft Edge here, since it is a Microsoft product, remember there's the Microsoft Bing search engine. So instead of typing a web address into the address bar, I could just type in search terms. Again, budget hotels, Philadelphia. And it will search the Microsoft Bing search engine. So in this case, the address bar is also acting as a search tool. So it's both. You'll see with Chrome, like Google Chrome, okay, if you type search terms into the address bar, it will search google.com. Okay, and it is possible to change the search engine that's used or change the search engine that's linked to your address bar by going to that respective browser's settings like we did before. But again, because this is a Microsoft product, it's going to default to Microsoft Bing. Google Chrome will default to google.com unless you change it. Now, this leads to another discussion, which is basically, once I find my results, how do I know which results are going to serve me best? How do I evaluate the results? How do I evaluate the websites to which those links lead? Okay, that's something we're going to talk about in Internet 2 next week. So we're going to talk about evaluating websites based on specific criteria to see if we're getting the best information, the most authoritative, the most objective, etc. So we'll talk about that in Internet 2, and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the tools that we didn't really explore here today. And I'll also give you a brief glimpse into Firefox and Chrome, which really we don't have to go over too much because you're going to see that whatever we learn in Edge here is really applicable to those two browsers. Even though they're all different brands, they work virtually the same way. All right, so for my virtual students, if you have any further questions about what you learned here today, I encourage you to send them through the GoToMeeting chat. In the meantime, I'll go through a few closing remarks and then we'll be all set for the day here. Oops, there we go. So thank you for coming to Internet 1 today. Remember that this class was recorded. It will be available on our library's YouTube channel on our computer instruction playlist. To get to that, go to our website at mcl.org. Click on the YouTube in the upper left-hand corner, the YouTube icon in the upper left-hand corner of the homepage. That will take you to our YouTube channel. From there, go to playlists and then select the computer instruction playlist. And you'll see all of our recordings there. And as I always like to mention, check out our other playlists as well. Okay, we have a lot of great library programs that are recorded and available on our YouTube channel. And they each will be available in different Recordings are available in different playlists, so I encourage you to explore them to discover a lot of great stuff that we're doing here. All right, as I mentioned earlier at the beginning, we do have handouts for our classes, including this one. So if you want to get to the Internet One handout or other handouts, they are on our website. Go to mcl.org, our main library website, click on Services from the main menu, and then select Technology Instruction. Once you're on the Technology Instruction page, just scroll down and you'll see all the handouts listed by the name of the class. All right, as always, we hope you sign up for some more classes. So you can sign up by yourself through our website, either go to the main events calendar like we explored earlier and just filter it to computer classes, or you can go to our technology instruction page and use one of the register buttons there. Okay, that will take you directly to the computer class calendar as well. Either way works just fine. And just scroll through for register for whatever group classes interest you. And remember that we are also offering in March on select Fridays between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. We have those virtual private sessions where we work with just you individually on a computer project you might need some help with. All right, so if there's a Word document that you're having trouble with, an Excel spreadsheet, or if you're, in some cases, if you have a tech device and you just need some general troubleshooting tips for it, or if you're trying to get through your email, something like that, we can help you with those questions as well. So again, these are on select Fridays between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and they are at this time virtual only. So just find them in the same computer class calendar, click on the link for private sessions, and then follow the instructions to book your session. If you have any further questions about our technology instruction program, you can always send us an email to techclass@mcl.org. All right, if you have no further questions at this time, for those of you attending virtually, you can go ahead and click on the X in the upper right-hand corner of the GoToMeeting window and then select Leave Meeting. If you are leaving, thanks so much for coming today, and we hope to see you again in class very soon. Take care.